It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 536.
Special guests on the show.
Anna Mackenzie and Caitlin Judd, also known as Cait Judd.
Yes, Cait Judd.
No relation
We
to Beck
rehearsed
Judd.
this earlier.
Yeah,
No relation to Beck or
To be determined.
Mr. Chris.
And so you have Lady Brains and Ladyland, Ladyland being the podcast.
We do.
Lady Brains being the business. We were just having a conversation before and we wanted
About
to save it for. It's like there is what is the difference? I mean, one is a podcast, but it's...
Yeah, great question.
Thanks. If
Created
anything,
a
we
monster.
heard this morning on radio, someone asked a great question. They determined as a great question, but it's just time to search
Build
for the
time.
answer.
Oh,
It's
tell
not
the
a-
truth.
it never is a
It's
great
time to
question.
tell the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Lady Brains is the business.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a club for entrepreneurial women in Melbourne, Sydney, New York. Ladyland is the podcast arm of the business. And really, we have created a bit of a monster. We probably should have called the podcast Lady Brains, but the reason we didn't simply was because there was already a show in America that was like 3 Texan women chatting about nothing called the Lady Brains podcast.
Sure. I think that's a good, it's good to make sure that you are the only one. Like you see podcasts that come out and there's already one that exists. I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
Hard to do now.
It is hard.
Well, there is now another Ladyland.
Yeah, that's the clincher. So we went out with Ladyland and then someone came out with a Ladyland podcast. So
How much have you looked into exactly what address they're living at?
Well, funny. They're also in Texas. So
Really?
don't know what that's
Is that
about.
for the
what's going on over
Would the
there?
Next Door app tell you that? Or
yeah.
how's the...
Next door.
Could look into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should.
And
we
so
should.
you've done a bunch of interviews recently in New York. Was that a planned trip where you were just going there
or
to
purely
create
a
content?
business write-off?
Yeah, no, not quite. I had a wedding to attend and then we somehow turned it into a bit of a little cheeky business trip.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well,
Anna
so she
joined.
had a wedding to attend and then I decided, I'll quit my job. So
Right.
quit my job and then we went to New York for a month and we landed a few awesome interviews like CJ Hendry, who was amazing.
So good.
And then, we just kind of gallivanted around, went out to the Hamptons, went upstate, recorded a whole bunch of content, met a whole bunch of people and then came home, which was awesome.
There's nothing more liberating than quitting your job and then going on this sort of unique experience and feeling like it's your new life and then the step back into reality.
Well, yeah.
I think it's just even just
Too
stepping back
positive.
into your normal life or what you call life back home.
Yeah.
Leaving your job, where were you before?
I was at Mecca.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the venture, going into any venture, business partners, what was that relationship? Was it a friendship or was it a business, purely sort of business first and then you became besties?
Yeah. So Anna and I, we went to school together. So we've known each other for a very long time. We're 12.
Yeah.
It started out as a friendship and we've had a really strong friendship over the years. We obviously went our separate ways to, go and pursue other interests and work in different places. And then came back together and we always wanted to start a business together. Like that was just kind of the dream, and it never kind of worked up until
We had many
ideas.
many failed business ideas. Like I think the funniest one that I always refer back to is we were 21 and we were actually sitting at a restaurant in Victoria Street and we were like, oh my God, there's a gap in the market for a divorcee dating app.
a divorcee dating website. So it was the dating, but also where can you find a babysitter if you have kids? Where can you it was a whole resource hub for divorcees, right? We're 20. Yeah. We weren't probably even 21 years old.
But I think we should check. We've still got the domain name nevertoolate.com.
Or second round offer as well. This is why I pay GoDaddy so much money.
Well, this is
What
the
about
thing with-
I'veGotKids.com? So you
I've got
just
kids.
know
Oh, yeah.
that you've got kids if you're dating.
Great. Love that.
Yeah. Check if that's around.
Yeah.
GoDaddy is probably the best provider.
I'veGotKids.com.
Yeah.
I've got kids.com. So it's like the awkward conversation as a single person. Not that I'm pointing to myself. I'm not single. I have
Single
kids.
person with kids.
But I could imagine the anxieties around I've got kids and I want to date. And so how do you dating a 22-year-old on Tinder? It's do they want to be dating someone who has kids? I don't know. So it's just leading with it. You bring your kids. It could be double dates. I don't know. I thought it.
Family vacay.
Listen.
Probably need to workshop
This
this a
will
little
be
bit
in
more.
the list of businesses that didn't work.
That was one of the ones that,
That was
definitely did
one.
not work.
Yeah, the
And
other
so
one.
how did you know that it didn't work?
Well,
I mean, it could. It's
well,
still
to be
could.
fair, we didn't really understand the target customer because we were 21 and single at the time. We purchased a domain name. I think we did a bit of research and then we gave up and went on to the next one.
Yeah, great.
So the next one was like a bike sharing app,
Cool.
which has been really successful in Melbourne.
Well, Tommy did the O-Bike fishing video that went viral where it was he fished them out
You
of
fished
the
them out of the Yarra?
the
I
Yarra.
think I'm responsible for
Yeah.
their demise in Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Right.
something he hangs his hat on.
Yeah.
And
Taking
he loves
down one
getting
business.
was it Lime Scooters? You were sliding into their DMs. Anytime there's sort of a share type thing, he's like, hey, I'm the O-Bike guy.
Yeah.
I'm sort of available.
But sharing your bike, sharing your bike is like you're not using it. Who else can use this thing?
correct.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Didn't go
need
anywhere.
that, but I feel like I've got a bike that would be, I'm not in a position, I don't want to sell the bike.
You want to rent it out.
Yeah. And so that would be useful.
Side note, I read an article about a really interesting business that has just come to Australia, which like has raised lots of money in the US.
Right.
Airbnb for pools.
Oh, that's interesting.
Borrow somebody's pool for the day.
Yeah.
Yep, you pay a daily rate and
Right.
it depends on how, like whether it's a mansion type pool or just a normal pool.
Right.
And you can pool share.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that a good
if you can afford a pool, I don't
Then
know if you
do you need to
do you
rent
want to
it
rent
out?
it out?
Yeah.
But I guess
Yeah.
like
Mate, there's a lot of
recessions and
bogans
stuff.
stretching themselves to
Yeah,
get
exactly.
a pool.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, to live the lifestyle. Maybe you need to rent it out a few days.
Are you a
year.
bogan who just got a pool? Have you pushed your debt way up and need to pay it back?
Yeah, but it's even like when you because I had a pool when I was a kid, and it was almost
but you're a
like
bogan.
yeah, definitely a bogan. But you already had your friends asking, and people, I remember people would rock up,
Totally.
and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, go," and they had their fucking towel. They hadn't even
they're
called.
ready. Yeah.
100% ready.
My mate did a video, Ryan John. He went around, found on Google like where the pools were,
Clever.
and went and asked in summer, was like, "Can I jump in your pool?" And asked enough people and got one.
That's how this guy started the business. He went on Google Earth and he searched all the pools in the area. I think it was in LA.
Great idea.
I mean, it's pretty smart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, an app idea that I had the other day, we were at the airport and I have status, Tommy doesn't, whatever, no big deal. I'm about to
Right.
lose it anyway.
Oh, don't lose
I know.
it. Get
It's
on
a
a
nightmare.
plane.
I literally,
How are they feeling sorry for him now? And not me? I'm still the loser with no status.
It's the bogan with no pool.
it's hard. It's actually harder to get rid of it.
When
right?
you
Like-
pay for a pool on your credit card, it usually puts you into status. Right?
Yes.
But they and so I could get Mr. 97 into the lounge.
Yeah.
But with gold you only get one extra person. And so what we're going to do with Tommy and it just so happens I was getting ready to just hustle and say, hey, can you just let us in? Like we're all wearing the Daily Talk Show hoodies. We're part of a crew. Come on, just let us in. And we've done that at Sydney Airport and it's been successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
International's a bit harder.
International's
Yeah.
harder because it was Emirates or whatever. It was like a code share, whatever. Tommy then waits out the front and just starts talking to a guy who's lining up to go into the lounge.
Oh, it was perfect timing. I sort of sat back. Mr. 97 was watching me, thinking, "What are you doing?" And I saw one guy walking towards us, and I was like, "Fuck, this could be my shot." And as he got closer, I was like, "Hey, mate." He said, "Hey," I was like, "Are you going in here?" And he's like, "Yeah."
You creep.
And I said, "Oh, where are you flying to?" And yeah, he got a bit weird. And he's going to Melbourne. He was on the same flight as me. I was like, "Oh my god!" I said,
Perfect.
"My mate's got status. He can't get me in. Would you mind if I came with you?" He's like, "Yeah, sure."
But then there was a
good.
question of when we walked in, there was a moment where we were like, oh, do you want to come sit with it? Like I was like,
I'm
do we need
yeah,
to
Should we
come
have a
along?
champagne together?
Jokingly, I said, yeah, feel free to come sit
He
with
worked
us.
at Microsoft, seemed like an interesting dude.
Yeah.
I actually think more people should do that.
And so the
There's
idea,
so many people that get a +1.
yeah,
That's the
And
app.
if they're traveling
you.
solo, just kind of go up and
yeah.
That's the app.
I mean, the worst thing, or just stand in the line. Walk
it's
up
gonna
and
be
You
cool.
can
stand
use
in
my
line.
trick. You can use my
So
trick.
this is the idea though. There's an extra layer. So it's called Karma. And so it's based on like I don't have Qantas, but I've got Virgin. And so it's like I do it for someone. So then when I'm on a Qantas flight, I can then
Okay.
get that. And so it's a bit
like,
of karma.
yeah,
So
reciprocal.
it's a bit
Yeah.
elitist.
Yeah.
We did find one problem, terms and conditions of the status thing is like
Yeah.
you can't do that.
What about how do you monetize that? if it's a karma
I mean,
situation.
there's a lot of businesses that haven't.
Yeah, I mean, some have raised millions with no business model behind them.
Yeah,
It happens.
can
Yes,
relate.
Anyway, so we've talked about business ideas that haven't gone anywhere, and I think that's the easy part, right? Ideas are easy, execution is
Totally.
Oh yeah.
another thing. And for you, what you've created is working. The podcast is growing, and it's got a great audience and the business. So why did you land on this one?
So after a few, start stops with ideas, we finally landed on Lady Brains. And I think, there were originally 3 of us in the beginning. Maeva was our, co-founder as well. And the 3 of us just identified the fact that we all wanted a network that we could tap into. And we wanted to be able to connect with, other women that were starting up businesses or trying to scale a business. And I think, I was working for myself at the time. Anna, again, she wanted to expand her network as well. And so it was kind of an easier one to start because we had friends and our friends also wanted to do kind of like a dinner series or a dinner club. And so we started running these supper clubs. And that was so easy for us to do. I mean, like we go to dinner anyway, but let's just kind of formalize it, put a little bit of structure around it.
Was it like tickets? Is like a
Yeah,
people like,
we
you don't have
did.
to
We
worry
started
about
selling tickets.
splitting the bill. You don't have to worry about.
And it's so much easier, right?
so
It's like,
good.
pay us, come along, and that the genesis was, were these supper clubs, and it grew from there because we started inviting founders into these dinners, and so you'd have the opportunity to sit at the table and talk to and ask questions of a founder who was building a big business. Like that's quite unique to be able to ask any question that you want.
Do you think people have more social anxiety nowadays? Like, is it hard for people to
Network?
take the leap and network?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a degree of social anxiety with social media and all of that sort of stuff. But I mean, the demand for our supper clubs are just crazy. Like, well, we don't run them that often, maybe once a month. But when we do run them, they sell out within,
48 hours. We sell the tickets.
yeah.
Less than that, but they're available for 48 hours and
people
they
are
sell out straight away.
craving that like real life connection, especially people who are sole traders or they work from home by themselves and they don't have a team or they have a virtual team. People are just dying for it. And the thing
Hungry is the word.
hungry.
Hungry.
They're
They're
hungry
hungry
for
to
it.
eat. They're
Hungry for
to
good
live.
wine, good food and connection. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I think a lot more people are now doing that and taking the leap because entrepreneurialism, is that a word? I don't even know if it is, but building your own business is so much more accessible now than it used to be. And so people see other people doing it and they're like, fuck, I can do that. I'm going to quit my job and give it a crack. And when they do that, a lot of women especially aren't necessarily set up with the networks or the right information to be able to succeed. And so that's kind of what we exist to do, is help people, or help women specifically who want to go off and start their own thing and set them up for success. But I think like it wasn't necessarily a business idea that we had.
It was a side hustle.
It was organic.
Yeah.
Like it was one dinner and then the next dinner all the people that came were like, oh my God, my friend would love that. Can she come? And then the next month it was like double the size. And then the next month it was like 45 people. And that's when we were like, okay, there's something in this. So it kind of just grew from there. Yeah.
What are the commonalities? Like, what are you finding that everyone has in common, specifically around problems? What's a common problem?
It's a good question. I think there's a few things. I think, a network. So just being able to, share your wins and your problems with someone else that understands and cares. I think people were looking for contacts. So suppliers,
mentors or, someone that can introduce me to that person or, the contacts has been a huge piece.
Contacts has been a big one. And what else were they like there?
I think certain like skills as well, because a lot of people are taking the leap and starting their own consulting business or, side hustle or whatever it is. And you're expected to do everything, especially if you're a single founder, you have to do everything. You have to do PR, marketing, product development, sales, networking, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people don't necessarily have those skills. And so they're looking to kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So the know-how.
Any cool stories of, people who have formed connections, and then created a business together, or wasn't the intention of coming to do one thing and they've got something else out of it?
We've had people that have had like secured jobs.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so cool.
We had a good friend of ours who was working at Mecca and got a great job at Thank You as head of product development through someone she met at our supper club.
We've had, people find a supplier or manufacturer through a contact at the dinner. We've had people connect in terms of finding a sponsor, like sponsorship deals. So because we have female founders come along, but we also have people from, the corporate world as well, which is really cool. They're showing an interest in, I guess, entrepreneurship, and they bring a lot of value. They kind of see business in an entirely different way. And so it's nice to have a mix of women at the table that have different experiences. And, we do, often use table topics and they guide us. And I get, again, the lessons that come out of the answers to those table topics, because they're quite, they're so fascinating from different perspectives, has been really helpful for most of the women there.
The taking the leap thing. Kate, you've had your business for a while. Anna, you've, took the leap leaving Mecca. What's the big misconception, do you think? Because there's something very sexy about the whole idea of just like going out in flames or whatever and starting your own thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely glorified, that's for sure. And there's this sense of like, be an entrepreneur, be a founder. And even those words for me kind of hold a bit of like, ugh,
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing for me has been kind of moving away from being in an office environment where you're bantering with your mates all day, every day, and you've got a bit of structure. And then, we live together as well.
Oh,
so
really?
we work together, we're best friends, and we live together.
I guess that would make like traveling and stuff easy, like when it comes to like going to
putting
like
food on the business.
Yeah, well, there's a bit like
you're just at least splitting
just
it.
the sad Uber Eats life. Like this is
Yeah, traveling from our bedroom to the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess there's those intangible things around the banter and the community. I guess there's co-working spaces that are sort of popping up to try and feed those missing bits. What do you think is the big misconception? What's the missing piece, do you think? Like what would you wish that you knew when you decided to make the transition?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the biggest misconception, I don't know if this is answering the question, but the biggest kind of thing that I've had to learn is that, and it sounds so stupid saying it, but like you have to work for every fucking dollar, like when you have a salary, you get paid every fortnight, every month, and you're doing the work and it just goes into your bank and you don't think about it. Like when you have your own business, you have to hustle and work for every single dollar, and you might be working the hardest you've ever worked in your life and earning nothing, but I'm still trying to get my head around that. I don't know if
so it's
anyone else can relate to that. But
Well, it's easy to become like evangelical about the whole thing. Like when you see your mates who are like employees or whatever and you hear and like, do you have any connection of like what you do and how that makes money? Like a lot of people are shielded, especially I guess in the new economy of digital and all that sort of thing where it's not bricks and mortar. It's not like you necessarily will see anyone. They're users. They're all these... it's these
content roles as well, especially because you creative roles where you're just meant to be creating stuff or videos, and then it's like, how does that connect to a dollar? Yeah, and how's that impacting how you make? How you don't care about cash flow when all you need to do is work out what's a cool video or something like that.
Yeah.
It's disconnected. So I feel the pain. Like I know it's and so how have you lent into it?
How have I lent into it?
Or does Kate take care of it?
It's just me.
Yeah, it's just
doing the
just running on the treadmill.
I mean, did you have that experience having had your own business in regards to cash flow and all that sort of stuff? Or
yeah, absolutely. So I worked. I've been working, for myself for about 5-6 years. So I know what that's like, and it's hard because you can share, like I can tell you all the things, but it's until you really step into that position and you go, holy crap, I don't have someone putting money in my account every week or every month. I have to work for every single dollar. Then it becomes the reality. And so it's hard to kind of hopefully, I kind of imparted as much advice as I could. And like, I think it's kind of softened the blow, the fact that I've been through it. But, it's just more ongoing challenges. We're a startup at the end of the day and, we have to figure out a way to make money and survive.
Yeah. And I think it's also being really strategic about what you go after and what you don't. Like when I was working at Mecca, if there was an opportunity, it would be like, yep, let's do it. Let's pursue this. Let's, develop this, whatever. But when you're in a small business, you have to consider the value of every single thing that you choose to do, because if you say yes to something, then you're saying no to something else.
Yeah. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because, when you're working for yourself, you've got the freedom, right? You have the freedom and you can say yes to anything, but there are so many opportunities right out there that you have to kind of whittle them down and say no and focus on what actually, is the most valuable at the time. So yeah, you've got all these opportunities. It's like shiny object syndrome. You want to go after everything, but really what's the, most sensible thing to pursue? And that's what we're trying to figure out
at the moment.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
now.
it's not for everyone, is it?
It's hard. It's a hard balance.
I think you said like
hard.
the entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur is, a fashion accessory to some
Yes,
degree
that's a great way of
nowadays.
putting it.
And so that doesn't get you through the hard times.
No, it's not for the faint-hearted. I mean, both of us are like, let's just throw in the towel and go get a job.
And a margarita.
What is that
And a
job?
margarita.
Because we talk about that.
Tommy wants to become a cop.
Yeah, I heard an ad this morning. I was like,
To be a cop.
I don't know.
so good.
They get 10 weeks off a year.
Well, you could do that now, because Anna was telling me the other day you have to have life experience to apply. To
Yeah,
become
you
a
also
cop.
have to have year 12. I don't have that. Can you actually look up Mr. 97? That's not a task for today.
You'll
but
have to
that's
do some other.
personal.
You could do it now.
Can he
Plan B.
has he had enough podcasting
Yeah.
experience
Yeah,
to
what
be
do you
able
need?
to apply?
Yeah.
Surely you can just have Grammarly and you'll be fine.
I mean, how much am I
How much
using?
writing? How much shit are you?
Yeah, how much
You just
writing
need
are you
to know how to
doing?
use a gun or whatever and a taser and all that sort of
Just want
thing.
that authority.
Yeah, what is it? What are the biz?
What are the
Yeah, do you think about the jobs if you were to have a job? It's a fun process. It's like it's the equivalent of it's the opposite of thinking about what you're going to do if you like win the lottery, right? It's like if I was to give away all my dreams,
Oh my God,
what I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. What's yours?
Well, do you know what? I do not have one, because I'm like,
No plan
there
B.
is no plan B.
Yeah.
This is it. Yeah.
I'm quite lucky in that Mecca has said to me, if you ever want to come back, you can. So that's great.
Like a plan B.
Like that's a plan B. Yeah, that's exactly. It's a plan B. But
Yeah.
I just,
Nah.
I can't imagine experiencing the freedom that we've experienced going back and
Yeah.
and being in a 9 to 5. But
Yeah, the joke is to go back, but you just
Oh, yeah.
couldn't.
Oh,
It's
no.
too hard, and we really believe in what we're doing. So,
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, even if we won the lottery tomorrow, bloody hell, that'd be great, but we'd know where to put the money, and it would be
Yeah.
into the business, and we'd
Totally.
keep working. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's straight into a bar in Mykonos.
We might change where we work from.
Yeah.
We've got one-way tickets to
Take a cheeky vacay in there.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're talking about is like the fear of the unknown, entrepreneurship and doing and creating something from scratch. It's like no one knows if it'll work. All the good businesses, no one necessarily knew, because there's all the ones that didn't, and they
Yeah.
all thought it was going to work.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, most fail. Like that's the reality.
But I guess the other thing too is it's like I think sometimes we ask for advice from people, but it's like they're not doing it, yet we're expecting them to be like across why we're doing it and getting that sort of value from them.
What's the consistent pattern across the people you meet that come to your events that is like they believe in something and like they truly believe it, whether it'll work or not?
Yeah, they do. And I think it's really important to have a vision and to understand what your why is, like what's your reason for being and for blindly pursuing something. We're pretty clear on our why, and I think most of our guests have been too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the consistent things across everybody that we've interviewed is everybody has had this like vision, and they have been uncompromising in pursuing it. Like, CJ is a great example of that. Joe Horgan, who will release next year, also has the most clear vision, but they're willing to do anything to get there, and they're willing to pivot and change and sacrifice this and, get there in a million different ways, but that never changes.
Yeah. And I think, so often you can get stuck in the like day to day, right? It's like you get bogged down by what do I have to do today? What do I have to release tomorrow? And, that can you can start to just, float around. But I think if you're really clear on your vision and where you're heading, it kind of pulls you through. And so every decision that you make, every decision you make is really kind of getting you to that why.
What about compromises? Where does that fit in a grand vision?
You have to compromise, and sometimes you have to pivot based on what you learn. If like you're validating an idea, we were talking to Sarah Fryer, not too long ago, and she told us that Slack, which a lot of us use, used to be a gaming application. So, it started out as a gaming application, and they had the chat functionality for all the gamers to kind of connect. And then they figured out, oh, well, everyone's actually just connecting through the chat thing, and they completely changed their product. So you have to compromise, you have to pivot. Sometimes that does get you to a better outcome. So it's kind of listening to what your customers want and listening to, it's taking in all the information and trying to figure it out. And that is probably the most difficult part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing it as a team, creating that alignment. How hard is that?
Look, it's been a challenge. I think Caitlin and I work in very different ways, which is great, but it also can be a challenge. But I think one thing that has held us together is that we have the same vision and we have the same values. Like we want to help women. We are passionate about this, and it's just about having good communication.
Yeah.
But like Caitlin's very, very, very considered in all of her decision making. She'll think through everything. She'll take the time to think through properly. Whereas I'm really trigger happy. I'm really gung ho.
She's a shiny object.
I'm a shiny object syndrome. And that has been a point of it's been a point of tension and frustration for both of us. But ultimately, it's great because without her consideration, I would probably gone off in a million different directions, and without my kind of like pushing, we might not have taken the action on XYZ. So it's all about
balance. We kind of balance ourselves out, each other out, which is really nice. Yeah.
What's the difference between the duo, the partnership, and say having Maeva, like in that sort of 3-person? How does that change dynamics, do you think?
I mean, I guess you've got that third person. So if you ever have a tied decision, you've got someone that can go one way or the other. So sometimes, we may...
Someone who's very thought out would say something like that.
Yeah, so
classic Caitlin response.
That sounds like it was straight out of a contract. Like a shareholders agreement.
That's because we've been doing a few of those lately.
Yeah, tied decisions.
Obviously, who combs through the contracts? Yeah, no.
I love it.
But obviously she would help us kind of make the decision. So sometimes we're tied up and we might just throw it to our other housemate, or we'll throw it to someone, the dog. I mean, anyone. Just
what does your other housemate do?
He is a strategy consultant for a sports marketing agency.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's smart.
Yeah.
He's smart.
Yeah. So I mean,
the poor guy.
He's run a few strategy meetings for you.
Yeah. He's like, I feel like I'm living in a startup environment, and it's like, yes, sorry.
Whiteboards in the living room.
Put your hoodie back on.
Yeah. Get out of your suit, mate. What are you doing?
And it's a stand-up. Get up. That gear.
Oh God.
No, he's a legend.
Yeah.
The thing with like going to New York or whatever, or even having that in the whole strategy, like New York always comes up, Melbourne, Sydney, New York.
Yeah.
Why? And what does that do in regards to the vision or how you look at the whole, business?
I think we went to New York partly because of the wedding, but also partly because, the podcast space is becoming quite saturated, especially in Melbourne. There are a lot of podcasters in Melbourne, and there are a lot of guests who are sort of cycling through the same guests who are cycling through those podcasts. And, one of the point of difference for us is like we want to be able to get the guests that other people can't get. And so part of that was going international. And, we had a mutual friend with CJ Hendry. I used to live with her ex-boyfriend. And so we landed her and it was like, we've got to go. She's like does no press really ever. She's only ever done one other podcast interview. So we were like, we've got to go for that. So I think that has been important in terms of differentiating the podcast. But with Lady Brains, like we want to build a global business and we want to build global communities and sort of connect these startup hubs of the world. And so Melbourne, Sydney, New York, that's kind of just how it's evolved. And
that's just the start.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I think, we want to connect all of the startup hubs. And I think that's quite exciting. We're kind of all doing the same thing, right? We're all starting businesses and we've all got the same similar challenges. So how can we connect founders globally and learn from each other. I think that's kind of also the next piece.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the rich people's problems, people who don't have much money, and the similarities of the struggles that we all have.
Yeah,
it's a comforting piece to understand that everyone is going through. I've said that before. It's like I find some solace in that of like we are all going through our shit.
And it's interesting. Like we interviewed someone a couple of days ago who we're going to release next year. Kate Morris from Adore Beauty. She was amazing, and she just sold 60% of her business for hundreds of millions of dollars. And she was telling us that in 2014 they almost went under and they couldn't pay payroll because they didn't have the cash flow. And she'd been in business for almost 15 years. She was a multi-million-dollar business, and she's experiencing the same problem that we are, that small businesses do. And so that was quite powerful for me.
But she rents out her pool, so she's
she rents out a pool.
Yeah,
But she can fund the app, to be honest. I love it.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so it's a funny one because but we all it feels like we've got the biggest problem in the world, when it's your own, right?
Sure.
How do you get perspective? How do you girls, because I have an idea of how I gain perspective on the situation I'm in. Is there a tool that you use that makes the big things seem smaller?
Yeah, great question. I'm pretty high in my strengths in perspective. So I think just, kind of just checking in. I think gratitude's a really good practice, where you just kind of figure out what are you grateful for this week, this month. Some people journal. I just kind of have a think about it. I think, being grateful for what you have is and the experiences that you're going through. Like, holy crap, I get to try and build a business with my best friend. We get to travel, it's freaking cool, and I think, it's hard. There are definitely challenges and, you don't know where the money's coming in from. But at the end of the day, we've chosen this path and I'm grateful for that. So gratitude helps me personally.
There's a piece of self-development in starting any business because you need to work out, like, so for instance, yesterday, Michael Bungay Stania, who was on, mentioned something around him being more risk adverse when it comes to money.
Yep.
So he holds it in a bit closer. And so he's identified that. Is there something you've identified in sort of how you approach it and in a difference? You mentioned the thought out or seeing how it all plays out. You a bit more gun.
What's the personal values? Personal values like that end up really translating. Like for Tommy is very specific on where are we spending money, expenses, how can we cut? And I'm always like, let's just get bigger clients so we can service my dumb things I'm buying.
What are you buying?
Yeah. What have we got? Harry,
just you see the microphone.
Like this, quite sturdy, this is.
Harry literally did this. I don't know if you saw that. No, these
I gestured at everything for those.
Playing at home.
Yeah, but when
there's
does
like $3,500 in these, by the way.
Well, I did ask before. No one wanted to answer how much it was.
You need to answer the question we asked.
We'll get to that.
I can't remember. Anyway, go on.
$3,500.
Yeah, that was a lot. But no, so what is that for you? So I guess it's the whole thing of for us it's the expense and working together works really well because it means that like I've actually dialed in, like Tommy does a lot of the stuff goes on his card or whatever, and so he's across it and stuff, and but then I'm able to bring the other side, which is the posture of asking for more money or working out ways of generating more. What is it for you two? What are your strengths?
Well, so just on that, I think we're pretty lean. We don't spend a whole lot of money. Like, I mean, which is good. Not yet anyway. We'll see what 2020 looks like. So, in terms of figuring that out, we're across.
We're both across
what we spend.
Is there a way or a formula of determining whether you should buy something or not? 97, what's some dumb shit
what have you put on?
Well, 97, you got the tattoos. But he decided to get, so what are they called?
What, the temporary tattoos?
Yeah, he's got
temp tattoos.
Temp tattoos.
So he ended up putting that on his ING because he couldn't be bothered bringing it to us.
I was actually going to blow up then.
I didn't approve that. You didn't.
No. How much was it? So So 97 couldn't be fucked asking. How much did it cost
It's
you?
$30.
$30.
Okay.
What was the ROI on that $30 spend?
Well, we'll have to see in 2 weeks. They're going to be on the show in 2 weeks.
I
Okay.
say. You
But
heard it here
also-
first.
Yeah.
Can we steal that? What do you reckon? Temporary
tattoos. It's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
LB?
You could have a henna station or something at one of your.
well, we
supplements.
actually, a good friend of ours, Phoebe, has a brand called The Memo, which is a baby e-com site. And at her launch party, she had a tattooist. So Jem Watt's got a tat there.
Queen
yeah.
Gronk. She got the tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is,
What'd
she
she
had
get?
a can of Coke, a bottle of Coke, and I thought she said, it was to keep her sugars up. And I was talking to her, and she brought the Coke with her. I had assumed that they had it on standby.
Because she knew she was getting the tat.
So I thought,
So I'm
That's
still trying to
clever.
work out what this is.
don't
What's the
worry
tattoo
about it.
got to do
What was
with
an
the Coke?
event?
To keep her sugar
Sugars
levels up.
For what
In
reason?
case she faints, I guess.
It's a good excuse for a Coke.
Yeah, no, that's what I was getting at. I don't know how it
I would
connected
have
to
had
the
a
tattoo.
natural
I
confectionery
mean, it was
company.
BYO.
like this.
I don't know.
Yeah. Does that actually not help?
I don't know
Can you
why
look
that
at
would help.
sugar
For what
levels,
reason?
97?
Blood sugar relating to a little tattoo. I don't think there's any
I don't
connection.
know.
I don't think there's a connection. But what did it say? Do you know?
I can't remember.
What did she get?
I
Close
can't remember.
Was it
journal.
words or a symbol?
The Daily Talk.
It was something for a dog.
Oh, it was
that's
Good
right.
Morning, I think.
Oh.
Good Morning. Yeah, I think so.
Cute. What did Phoebe get?
I can't remember
No,
quite.
neither.
Did you get one? No.
No.
Considered it, but didn't. So,
You would never.
yeah, I considered it for a brief moment.
For a split second.
And so the formula of working out what to spend money on, when it push comes to shove, how are you going to work that out?
Look, it's just on a case-by-case
Yeah.
basis. Like, for example, with our launch of season 3, we had a marketing budget. We were like, we're going to spend X on this, and we just figured out how to spend it. And,
Yeah.
you know, we did an activation in Cremorne that was super successful. It went sort of a bit bonkers.
That was at Co & Co.
At
Yes.
Co.
It was so
Co.'s
much
great.
fun. Yeah.
So that was a cheap activation. We literally stood at the front of Co & Co and we told our audience and we were like, you get a free coffee if you share on socials. And
That's right.
who's going to say no to a free coffee?
Absolutely.
And also strategically, it's in amongst all of the creative agencies and a few big media
it's a great-
publications.
And close
So-
to ball games, the basketball scares me sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But Bree, my girlfriend, she got a coffee and I was like, oh, you posted on Instagram. She goes, no, not yet. I was like, what are you doing? You got to post on. So
Did you
She
make
was
I
it?
made it. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's
Follow
okay.
through, but she just took the free coffee and left.
Outrageous.
That's
There's
so
always a couple of
outrageous.
Gronks.
Yeah.
Putting
it's always a few.
yourself out there, creating content. Yesterday, young Harry was coached on the show, and it was about the confidence to put things out into the world that really put your name behind
Yep,
something.
yep.
Yeah.
What is it for you? What's your feeling around putting stuff out into the world that you've got your name on?
Oh,
How does it
great.
make you feel?
Do you know it's a really tough one? And we have been speaking about this for so long because obviously we've got the podcast, but and we've got Lady Brains, but for us, where we are the face of the brand. I guess we're the face of the podcast a little bit, but the Lady Brains is not about us. It's about the community, and we want to build a brand that is so much larger than just us. And so I think we've kind of held back from putting our face out there and doing video content as a really good example. We haven't really done any video content because we're like, it's not about us. On the flip side, brands grow so much quicker when there's a face to them that people can connect with. And so we're trying to find that balance. It's, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think, personal brand is a big one and you need one, and you guys have done so well building your personal brands.
What do you think our personal brands are if you were to describe us as individuals?
Now I know Bogan and
Tight ass. Tight ass and a bogan.
Bogan, that's a personal brand. Yeah.
No, I get it.
And so it can be really hard putting your
I won't push it. That's okay.
don't push it. It can be difficult to put your name to it for sure. I mean, I think putting the brand name to something is one thing, and then putting your own personal names to something. This is our first podcast interview.
Oh, really?
Great.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, yeah,
it is. It is. It's our
kind of
first
is, yeah.
podcast interview. Yeah,
It is. Sorry.
So now it's not.
Kate just punched out of his stomach.
I know.
This is
It's
what
like,
happens. This is the problem with having a duo. Like you get like this bullshit,
Someone
like
thinks they know
calling it,
better.
like. But it's also this call out culture on show. Like Tommy's always calling me out for things. That's fine. No, I
Well, we
get
have
it.
actually been interviewed,
We've been interviewed
Yeah, sure.
once,
Okay.
but it
but it's not
hasn't.
released.
Hasn't been released. Doesn't
There's
count.
only one
No.
the Daily Talk show.
Yeah.
There
So
is.
Yeah,
It's fair. I think what you were describing about deciding on whether to pursue building a brand that lives beyond the people behind it,
Yep.
and then building your own personal brands. I mean, a piece of advice someone gave me is like, when I was having that exact conversation was, who do you think of when you think of Apple? Who do you think of when you think of Virgin?
Yeah.
And reeling off, you could reel off a bunch of Boost. You think about the founder, Janine. It's
That's
like,
true.
It's true.
and so
Do you remember Janine's favourite? There was a specific, like she had her own smoothie, but they've taken it off the menu.
it's too naughty.
It was real. That's the thing. You
What
look
do
at
you mean?
Janine and you're like, she's healthy as
which one
fuck.
was
She's
it?
not
Naughty
young.
as in not healthy.
Yeah, it's called Janine's favourite. And so I'd be like, fuck, she's lean. I'll go that. It was like fucking 2,000 calories. I reckon. It was like the mango. It was delicious.
The mango ice cream.
Yeah, but there is
Mango madness.
But it's that whole thing. Christian Hull said to us, "People follow people."
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of truth
Oh,
in that.
100%. I mean,
And,
you connect with people and people's stories more so than you connect with like a faceless brand. So that's actually a really great way of thinking about it. I haven't really
advice. Thanks for
thought
that.
of that before.
Yeah.
Say it again. I've forgotten it already.
So when you say a brand, what was it?
Yeah.
So you said, when you think of
big brands,
when you think of a brand,
Yeah.
like Virgin, you think of Richard Branson, Apple, you think of Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
Boost, you think of Janine. It's like
Red Balloon,
they have been able to build their brands beyond themselves, using themselves as a bit of a tool.
Yeah.
Or
But
like,
let's dissect it. Is it that the business behind the thing that they're doing is so strong? So the business model behind Janine Ellis's business would survive regardless of her. So if she actually was a silent person within it, or is it the fact that she pounded the pavement, started the first and got it out there, and then sort of gets behind it, inspires other people to, you can create a business. I can help you do that. So the franchise model, I don't know the answer.
What about organic media? If you think about if you're a journo and you're writing something, the first thing you're going to be like is, who do I have access to? For July Luggage, it's Athan Didascalou. For Hey Tiger, it's Scientade. Like everyone needs
A contact
that
person.
sort of contact.
The face of, really, the brand.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I guess that because if you're just talking about brands, at that point it's sort of like just advertising, I guess, versus like the people story that people are going to connect with.
And then I try and work out, so, the cheekiness of Virgin. So it comes from Richard Branson, who himself is cheeky, and he's that guy pushing the boundaries and doing all this wacky shit. And so it then, the personality of the founder becomes the personality almost, or the tone of voice. Like,
Yes.
I think like the Frank girls have done, Frank Body.
Yeah, they've done that well.
They've done so amazingly because they've created this this.
But then what about brands like Red Bull?
Yeah, who the hell owns
Who the
Red
fuck
Bull?
owns
Who
Red
started
Bull?
that?
But
Good
if
point.
you think about it, it's still got the people focused media content, all like
All
adventure,
the car, all
aspirational stuff.
not ambassador program, but all the girls that drive the cars around.
Yeah,
That's
And their
kind of-
extreme
sure.
sports.
And their
thing.
extreme sports.
then all the athletes that are just plastered with Red
But even
Bull
like,
gear.
Nike, like, okay, yeah, Shoe Dog is a book now and people know who, I think his name's Bob, but like that brand grew without the founder being the face of. So there are examples of both, but I think there was a stat that one of our friends told us the other day that was like brands that have a founder as the face grow 800% quicker or something like that than brands that don't. And I think that's true,
Well, it's an easier conversation because I think Josh and I were talking about this. It's like when you're starting out, most people try and seem bigger than they are
Yeah.
to try and.
We're saying, what makes something seem a bit povo, and it's when you're trying to be bigger. It's when it's like, we are this and we're doing this and we're on a thing.
Sorry, I was thinking about the email the other day.
What email?
To the Cat Cafe, and I said, one of Australia's largest podcasts.
No, that was exactly right, mate. That's exactly who we are.
Harry
did. How did that go, by the way? So Harry did
they can't do it.
You don't yell, remember?
Oh, sorry. I don't have headphones. They're so far away. They can't do it. Something about the cats, not enough cats or something. But I thought, what about if we do it at 97 Sauna?
Outside broadcast.
Wait, hang on.
He doesn't have a sauna.
Are you renting saunas?
No,
Gym,
just at the gym. At the gym, there's a sauna.
Just to bring you up to speed, we sort of tasked Harry to organise an outside broadcast, a show
Cafe.
outside.
Can we come?
Yeah, well, it's not happening anymore.
Well, find another one.
Yeah.
Was it the one in the city?
Yeah.
So what did they say? Not enough cats?
Yeah, there was something to do about cats or
But how can a
I
cat?
can't remember endangering cats or
Endangering cats is different to not having enough cats when you're a cat cafe.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
But you did a strong sell.
we
Can
could
you
go
get
to- we could go to Japan. There's an owl cafe. I saw
no,
on
an
Facebook.
owl
Wouldn't
cafe?
that be awesome?
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be good.
Yes. I saw
Who
3
goes
owls
there?
last night. Just randomly.
You saw
Just
three owls?
They were all together. Yep. I was at home having dinner and walked outside and like 3 owls. And then he's like bobbing his little head and then he flew down in front of me. It was quite, I felt like I was in Harry Potter or something. It was quite amazing.
And you live in the same
3
house.
owls. I went back home for dinner.
Oh, okay, sure.
She's like, where's my housemate? She's out the front hanging out with owls. But yes, I'm on board with that idea.
Can we use your company card to get that?
You guys have status. Don't you have free flights by now?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
But also just on the sauna thing, I know we don't normally get into dreams, but 97 was saying you had a dream that involved this. What happened?
That's where the great idea. Oh well. I'll only say about half of it.
Is this safe?
So I assumed that the cafe would just go kapunk. So I had the dream that we were having it at 97 sauna.
It was an actual dream?
A dream, a full-on dream. And then I went, when I woke up, oh, that's a good idea. But Tommy was freaking out because the lens was fogging up and all sorts of shit was going on.
Also quite a small space. How many people are you expecting?
Well, there'll just be us.
Okay.
And it's not having a sauna to be clear.
I want to know what
I'm not
happened
rig
in
ready. I need another next summer. We'll do it next summer.
Kate wants to know what happened to the other half of the dream, but I don't think we'll
I
go
want to
there
know
today.
the second part of the dream.
Well, it was actually one of those Japanese
Onsen?
Yes. It turned out to be one of them.
So you
So
were
it's
all
tying up stuff? You
No!
No, what's the Japanese thing that you did?
Shibari.
No.
Japanese bondage.
What was the funny bit? What was the Japanese bit?
It's just a
It's an
Japanese
onsen, the spa, where you go in naked.
Yeah,
So what
naked.
was the
So you
second-
were all naked.
So why? So it was because we were naked. Is that why you couldn't say it?
Yeah, it was really well. I didn't know how far you wanted me to get, but it was just a bit. It was a strange dream.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. What do you think about? So 97 always comes to me with all the dream. He is very specific with his dreams. Do you have vivid dreams?
Yeah, I have a few vivid recurring dreams.
Okay,
So I
sounds slightly traumatic.
Yeah, I constantly have the teeth falling out. Dream.
What does that mean? Can you look that up, please, Mr. Moses?
I'm pretty sure it means that you're going through change or stress or something, and that happens on the regular.
Look, all your teeth.
Yeah. Sometimes it's part of my teeth.
Have you ever
Sometimes they
lost a tooth?
crumble. The other day, actually, I had a dream that I lost a tooth and it was full of diamonds. That was
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
That's great.
Yeah,
Mr. Nasev, did you find it?
It makes so much sense. So the dream could indicate that you're dealing with some kind of loss, an abrupt end to a relationship, or a job change.
A job change, that makes
There you
sense.
go.
What
So
about
we're
with
in-
diamonds?
Diamond.
Diamond teeth.
Diamond. Is there any others?
about you?
So I had one the other night. It was so random. I remember I told you I was in a restaurant which also had a public pool. Pools seem to be coming up. And I went to the bathroom, and in the bathroom was a big black bear and all these tiny bear cubs just hanging out in the bathroom. Bear cubs.
Were they scary?
Why am I dreaming?
dreams.
Why am I dreaming
Dreams.
about bears and bear cubs?
Yeah.
The diamond thing, 97.
Were you
anything like
at
that?
The diamond thing is a symbol of wealth, power, love, and attraction.
Oh,
Great.
hello. Good.
And so,
Great.
I think that's positive.
Need a bit of that.
And bears.
Bears symbolize strength, power, and independence.
Oh, great.
Oh, that makes
Okay.
sense. So
Cool.
strength within the context of it. Did you say it was a bathroom?
It was, I don't know why they're in the bathroom and why I was in a restaurant that also had a public pool. But anyway,
Are you into, I guess people would call it woo-woo, thinking, like looking at the meaning behind dreams or things that are, superstitious?
Horoscopes. I read
Horoscope.
Yeah.
I read 97's horoscope on Sunday.
Oh, good.
No joke. It said you have a new job on the horizon. So
That's awkward.
it was.
Well, the clinker, we did a clinker game where you bite it and it tells you the colour relates to a question. So
yeah.
will you stay in this job? And it said maybe for me.
Yeah, yeah, so
Fuck, signs
yeah,
up.
so
looking
the
good.
so the woo woo. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
are you
get
into
the-
anything?
Yeah, I mean, look, we sage our house.
It just smells good though. isn't it?
Yeah, it
That-
smells good. But,
yeah.
we'll do the whole ceremony,
Oh, that's good fun.
What's your housemate doing?
Yeah.
Asthma. Girls.
What's
Seriously.
Oh, God. Yeah, he probably doesn't appreciate that. But yeah, what else do we do? I mean, we've got this app called Pattern, and that, what does it actually tell you?
So Pattern is basically you put in your birth date and it gives you daily indications of like what's going to happen or where your head's at or what you need to focus on. But you can also like link up with other people's patterns, so you can kind of see what's happening within your dynamic of your friendship or partner or whatever.
I unsubscribed from Bree's Period the other day because I was getting like Flow, I think is the app or whatever. I was getting constant emails and they're so long.
Oh my God.
And so it's just like, I hope she doesn't get notified.
That you've unsubscribed, that you no longer care.
That is classic. Didn't even know that was a feature.
So are you making business decisions based on this app or what's the deal? Like what's today?
No. We should have a look.
Got our phones.
Harry can go through it. That's fine. No,
Harry's like, what's your passcode? Dear.
Podcasting, what is the biggest misconception? Like there's so many people that want to start a podcast. Where are people completely wrong, do you think, when it comes to podcasting or their perception of creating a podcast?
I think, I don't know whether there is a perception that it's easy, just get a microphone and press play and upload.
Because you've missed the recording bit.
Yeah.
Well, we have done that. Don't worry.
Oh, no.
We've lost some audio before. That's all right.
But yeah, I just think like it's so much work. And also, if you want the quality to sound good, which you have to have great production quality because otherwise people will automatically just, listen and then tune out.
Yours sounds so good. Like I reckon, it's one of the best. And it's like, it doesn't take, like you just need people getting close to the mic. Like I saw the behind the scenes with CJ and she's just holding it up there. But it's good. That's all. Like it's actually not that hard if you get the fundamentals.
That's it. And we invested in, like you guys have, we invested in, a good traveling kit. And now obviously we can also record in the studio, which is like amazing
primo
sound quality. But yeah, I think, you have to, the sound quality has to be good. And, I think you've just got to figure out like, what's your point of difference? What's your, like, it's kind of saturated now. And it's, everyone's kind of launching a podcast, which is great because I think that's the future of audio. But I think you really have to consider, how are you different? What's your point of difference? How does it fit with your brand? Like if you've got a brand already, what's the strategy behind it? Don't just like go and launch it, like put some thought behind it because I think you're going to perform a lot better in the long term.
And the shiny object view on the podcast thing, what's yours, Anna?
As in like what people...
Oh, no, because that speaks
put a lot of thought
perfectly.
behind it.
Yeah, put thought behind the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely
Did you just go, did you buy the gear? Anna, was it like
we all trotted off to well, it's actually the store's just around the corner.
Store DJ?
Store
DJ.
Oh, we know them well.
Great.
They've
get some decks as well. Get on.
Yeah.
The DJ bit.
We built it over time, didn't we? We got the mics, then we got the stands, then we got the headphones. Oh my God, the headphones make such a big difference.
Yeah.
You
know what the actual...
what it sounds like, because you're like, oh my God, yeah. You're just kind of like, you're moving away and the guests don't know because we obviously, we know to stay close, but your guests have no idea. So the headphones were a great addition to the kit. Yeah, we trial and error.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I like to look at sort of industries as, their games. If you're in the radio presenter world, you need to be up for playing a certain type of game. Could be in the corporate environment. It's like there is a game that you play in the corporate environment. It's not one for me. What do you think are some of the things that happen in the podcasting game that you have to be up for? One being an example, forgetting to press record, because that's like if you're signing up for that essentially. That there's an opportunity, there's a potential of it happening.
Ooh.
Yeah. What else?
What else is there?
Oh God, I don't know. I like you have people cancel on you.
Yeah.
And, we have been trying to get Pip Edwards forever, and we had her locked in for an interview, probably a year and a half ago now, and she had to cancel, which is fine. Never got her back.
I keep getting retargeted with the Estee Lauder where she's talking about sriracha mayo. I don't know if you saw it's her favourite condiment.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
But for whatever reason, it just kept hitting me on Instagram. Sriracha mayo. I'm like,
next one.
What about connecting with guests. So yesterday we talked about the first sort of 25 minutes in any conversation is like, is this kind of trying to build rapport to find and find your thing and you're like, got it.
Yep.
What is there something around that for you?
It's been interesting for us because majority of the interviews that we've done have been off-site. So we'll go out to the offices and we'll, be in their environment. And so they're automatically kind of at ease and we'll have a bit of bants and a bit of chat and, we tend to.
They'll show us around, like it's very different when you're going to someone else's environment.
Yeah.
Because then naturally they're at ease.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, come into my space. I'll show you my warehouse. I'll show you, this is my intern, And so it's like, it's great because you're in their space. So their guard's already down. And then, we'll have chit chat. I mean, we'll banter. It's, women, we know how to talk, right? Like we get going and then we'll do a little record.
So, I mean, we have to work a little bit harder in the studio because when we're at Podcast One, they're coming into the big, Fox FM building and we've got our producer there and there's frankly not as much time to banter because we're in the studio and we're there for an hour
How
or whatever.
Does it change your performance, do you think?
I think it's so we've done a few now, 2 or 3. I would say that it's probably more formal.
Yeah.
We're probably cleaner in asking the questions, which is good, but you kind of miss the banter. I think when we're off site, where we just we'll chat for a lot longer.
Yeah. So CJ, we were with her for 2 days.
So you couldn't do that. Yeah, we recorded for 8 hours. 8 hours of content, not all of that.
You were on the floor?
You were on the floor with my stand on an Hermes box, and she's guzzling Coke and it was just great.
I did read that status of 8 hours of recording. We got it down to what was it?
It was an hour. And to be honest, there is so much gold that we're thinking about how to release some more. But you can't do that in the studio. So
everyone says, why don't you start a Patreon? Like if you're going to start a Patreon, you're going to suddenly be making heaps of cash.
What's a Patreon?
It's like the people subscribing and they give you so it's like we'll pay you $5 a month and you give almost like Kickstarter, but a subscription type of model. Do you think that people are primed to pay for content? Do you think people are going to?
I think we're in this machine of free content. There's so much good content out there that's free that the standard has been set. I think it would be a hard job to convert people, I think, to paying for a podcast, even if it's good. Yeah. Even if it's good. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there are those services, but I agree. I think, there are so many free platforms, but that's where, ad revenue is going to increase. Obviously brands can advertise. And because ads have kind of been a part of podcasting from the beginning, we're used to it. It's not like, we used Instagram for a long time and there were no ads and then it was quite jarring. But I mean, obviously you adapt, right? Users adapt. But I think, people are used to listening to ads on podcasts and more brands are going to get on board and that's where the spend is, I believe. So people might not necessarily pay to listen to podcasts, but I think they'll be fine with ads and I think more and more brands are going to start spending there.
You do bring up a good point though, is how do you actually monetize this audience that you're building and how do you commercialize this asset that you have that, that's hard and I think everyone's trying to figure that out at the moment because it's such a new space and there's no kind of set business model attached to a podcast show. Everyone's trying to figure out where to take it and how to make money and is it this, is it that? So yeah, it's that's kind of a challenge.
That's a question. How are you guys monetizing your audience?
I'll take the fifth.
Because you guys would.
From the Bikram documentary, and he was being interviewed. It's so the Fifth Amendment means you don't have to answer the question.
I played the fifth.
That was so nuanced though. I mean, that's a very specific joke. I watched Bikram. Great doco.
I've wanted to talk about it a lot.
Yeah, and so I
found my in. So the Bikram documentary.
That is outrageous.
And it's gonna kill me because she's every night the whole last week. She's I really want to watch it. I really want to watch it. I'm I'm just knowing the headspace of that right now. Now we have nothing to contribute because we haven't watched it.
No, it's worth watching.
It is good.
It's I don't need to get into it with people who don't understand.
Oh, no. All right, man. Give us a little overview.
He's crazy. The guy for one, I didn't know that Bikram the yoga was a
Yeah.
guy named Bikram, and he still lives now. It's not some old yogi.
Right.
Documentary made by an Aussie
Really?
lady named Eva Orner.
Eva,
And
you were awesome.
Yeah, it's such a good film.
Yeah, you will love it. Watch it.
Great. We'll do that.
I wasn't really in the headspace too, and I was like, "Whoa, this guy is fucking a freak. He's quirky
Yeah,
as
it
fuck."
doesn't have too much of that. Like, it's not super. Because I never brought myself to watch, say, the Michael Jackson thing. I just can't.
it's not
enter
as
into
dark
it.
as
It's not,
that.
it's not like
It's-
super dark.
Okay, so it's not dark. So we'll just
Well,
watch
it's
it.
still got. It's definitely got dark
Yes,
elements.
Does it make you feel more normal?
I mean,
Yes.
because he's a freak. Yes.
Yeah.
By comparison.
But
Very much so.
Monetization,
Yes.
leveraging audience.
Yeah.
But I still choose to take the fifth.
No, I think like it's a.
I think we've done
Mate,
quite a bit of.
I thought you fucking took the fifth.
Yeah, come on, you can't take it back. You can't take it.
97?
Then.
She asked how you are,
He
and
doesn't
so I'm
know.
not
How are you
telling her.
monetizing
That's a
your
secret.
audience?
I think there is another look at what monetization means,
Okay.
and so you
Making
can
cash.
reframe. So monetization, what's the first thing that comes to mind for a podcast? Ad sponsorship. So it's like literally reading out ads and getting money in exchange. And so that's one way. There is a heap of ways to work out how to make money through this thing. And that's what we've been exploring. It was like, partnerships, advertising, work that comes from our brand that we build
Yeah.
within this.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I think if you're comparing to the big podcasts that are making a shitload of money from reading out a script, then it's a losing game.
I don't know if I took this from like a brand or something, but I heard it's like a influence without the influencers, and I like that idea of like we never want to go into like the influencer territory.
Yeah.
No.
However, we would love to have a community that believes in the stuff that we're doing.
Yep.
And so in turn you have some form of influence. And so you're very protective of that. And so I think that that's part of it, which is like with everything that you're doing with Lady Brains, it's connected to networking, it's connected to making those connections. And I guess that's what we get to do every day with the podcast. It's as much about us having an excuse to chat to you two than it is to communicate to the audience as well. So I think it's the very long game
Yeah.
of doing great work,
Yeah.
and hopefully that great work turns into cash. Maybe.
Yeah.
Diversifying your income too. It's like
Yes.
there is other ways
Totally.
Yeah.
within the business.
Well,
I mean,
well,
look at you guys. It's
Yeah.
the supper club.
Yep. Events. Yeah.
You
our
could see
event series.
that's like the size of those and the scale of that. It could be a direct reflection of how big the brand
Yeah.
Ladyland becomes. So it's
Yeah.
In every single, I could imagine it. Yeah, Melbourne, Sydney, New York, all simultaneously, all happening like at the exact same time. Have you done that yet, or have they all been local, like hyper local?
They've been hyper local, and I think the challenge with that is like we personally are there driving everything, and we can't be, in 3 places at once. And so we've run events in all 3 cities, but never sort of at the same time.
No.
And we're trying to think through how we connect like the startup hubs digitally as well.
Yeah, great.
And also
Yeah.
we've spoken about doing kind of Ladyland lives on a bigger scale. We've done some with like 30, 40, 50 guests. But how do we kind of go on tour and, do them in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide? That's another, opportunity.
Well, I think the hardest thing, the great thing, but the hard thing is like there are so many ways that you can take it. This, the podcast is merely the platform and the brand platform and a marketing tool really. And, you off the back of that build a community, whether you're driving that or not. There is a community of listeners who are like-minded because they're listening to your podcast. And then it's like, well, what do you do with that? And I think Jo Horgan from Mecca just was so amazing in her advice to us. She's like, the art is not in generating the ideas, the art is in the editing down of ideas. And that's the process we've been going through for the past 4 months. It's like, how do we edit down all of these ideas in a way that makes sense?
to then execute on the ones that really mean something.
Yeah.
Or?
Exactly. To choose the 1 or 2 that you execute and go after.
Can you execute and edit at the same time? Is that what iteration is?
Yes.
or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, you can. Definitely.
Yeah.
Ladyland, the next episode, who's joining you? Do you know, next week?
Next week we have Sasha Benz. So she is an Aussie Bondi girl who lives in the Hamptons in New York.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
Two horrible places, Bondi,
Yeah.
the Hamptons.
Oh.
No, they're
Yeah.
beautiful. What are you talking about?
That was an experience. So we went out to the Hamptons and interviewed her, and that was
Is that 97 laughing or Harry? Great.
sarcasm
So,
at its
yeah,
finest.
Oh, yeah. Great.
But she's got 5 businesses.
Yeah.
So she's like got 2 kids, 5 businesses. She's building a tech business. She's got 2 retail stores. She
Has a blog.
that she makes money from.
Yep.
She's the creative director of the Surf Lodge, which is this kind of like crazy
venue out in
in-
the Hamptons where like all the kind of celebrities go and they have music performances over summer.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's pretty
we saw
cool.
Lupe Fiasco when
Yeah.
we were there.
Oh.
He was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Is this like a big venue? I was thinking like a old school
It's-
lodge style.
Well,
It's yeah.
dive
It's
bar.
an old school sort of lodge in look and feel, but because it's in the Hamptons, you
It's
can
on
imagine the
the
clientele.
water.
Yeah.
So it's like a hot pot of celebrities, and they have the best acts.
Yeah.
Like Beyonce was there when we were there.
Yeah, no
Wow.
big deal.
Just to drop that one
You
in
know.
there. We actually were recording the interview with Sasha, and she had to go because she was getting a call from Beyonce's people saying
Yeah.
Beyonce is like coming to your store.
So she's like, can we wrap this up, mate?
What did that do to your headspace? Because like even us being in LA, like you have this sort of idea and you get into the rah-rah and all that sort of thing, and then
People
you
are
come
living
back.
big,
Yeah.
really big.
So what does
They
that
are.
do? What does that do psychologically? Like does it stretch your minds? Does it?
Yeah, I think it does stretch your mind. I think you get used to working in your own town, city, and then you kind of go overseas and you're like, wow, like there's just people are living large. I think of it more in terms of like opportunity. There are people over there that are also building incredible businesses that we want to talk to. And yeah, like getting a call, from Beyonce's people, it's just like, what?
Yeah, that was a bit of a what the fuck moment, not
Yeah.
going to lie. Like being interrupted because Beyonce's in town.
Yeah.
That was a moment where I was like,
What
the
are we
fuck
doing?
did we get here?
Yeah, seriously.
yeah.
Like,
How did we get here?
How did we get
And
here?
where is Beyonce going? Because I'll be there.
Yeah.
at
Well, we
5.
did. We jumped on our bikes and we were cycling around the Hamptons for a little while. We didn't find her.
Didn't
but
see? No, 'cause she came in on the chopper.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
But yeah, it's a kind of a pinch me. Like, what
Yeah.
are we doing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like everyone's the same.
Everyone's normal.
Like, she's an Aussie. Like, she's an Aussie over there, and she's built some successful businesses, and Beyonce wants to get in touch, and it's kind of like it's anyone's game.
Anyone can do
can
anything.
do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a part that's like it's aspirational and it's unattainable, but then at the same time you're like, holy crap, that could actually be anyone.
Yeah.
I think
So,
that's
yeah.
the learning for me going overseas is seeing the possibility and re-evaluating what possibilities look like for us and what we're doing. So it's a good perspective
Similar
shifter.
thing. Do you think that it has made you realize you're thinking too small? Like, is that what you
Yeah.
came? Yeah.
It's what happens a lot of the time. It's
Yeah.
like, and so I think about, well, it's also the size of this country and the amount of people here is so small in comparison. So a small piece of the pie over there is bigger than the whole pie here.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
that's where it's like, yeah, maybe you do start looking internationally. It is so but then it's the hard bit is how do you bottle that and
Bring it back.
yeah, how do you bottle that and
Well, because it's
call
to the
on that
dollar,
feeling?
like, but also like Anna, to your point before, it's like you have to work for every dollar,
Yeah.
and so the idea of having these big dreams, you actually need to think small. You need to make like $1 before you make 10,
Yep.
and 10 before 100, and 100 before 1,000, and so it's very easy to see these big things and try and create a roadmap to that. Whereas like it is the painful truth of you just have to like start small and keep going even
Yeah.
to get to the big thing.
Yeah, totally. My
Yeah.
mum has built a business for the last 25 years, and that was her one piece of advice. She's like, start small, but always think big. Because if you're thinking big, you can get caught up in that, and you're like, how the fuck am I going to get there? And then you don't do the small things. Whereas if you focus on the small things, one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the balance between
It
the
is,
two.
and I think what we're really good at is goal setting. So the goal setting is the day to day, or the small steps that we're just talking about. Like, okay, what do we actually need to achieve? But all those small steps, as I said before, are getting you to that end game, and that's the big vision. And we have big visions. We've got we want to build a global business, but you can't go there straight away. You have to take all the smaller steps, and we do that by just having really strong, strict, clear goals.
Yeah, we work in 3-month blocks. So
we work in 3-month blocks, and then we do 2-week sprint cycles.
Yeah.
Where are you at in the 3 months at the moment?
We're starting December, January, February.
Okay,
so we've just started an entirely new 3-month block, and we're into the first week of the 2-week sprint cycle. So
right at the beginning.
Pretty clear. Like, I think you have to have some kind of accountability. You have to be setting goals, because otherwise you're kind of shooting from the hip and you're not getting anything done.
And it's been good, because with that 3-month plan, it's like, for me anyway, it stops me from going off in a million other directions, which is my natural state.
Rein it in.
So she's like, Anna, we've got 3 big things we want to do.
Is it on the goal setting plan?
I'm like, fuck, all right.
I think it's awesome what you're building, especially like Ladyland. The other day I was listening to it on the way to work, and then came back, and before the guys were talking, I had to write down all the notes of the things I was learning, because I think you've done a great job of packaging it up, but also I think the ending where you talk about these are the takeaways, I think is like really powerful, because sometimes we don't synthesize, or we do a shit job of being able to do that. And so I think that's really powerful too.
I think we throw it over to Harry to get his takeaway from the episode.
Yeah, what's the takeaways, Harry?
I don't know.
He's been asleep.
No, I haven't.
Kidding.
I don't know.
What have you found inspiring about Anna and Kate, do you think?
I think the goal setting, and how if you have your goals, you're more likely to achieve them rather than not putting them down, like listing them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was the last thing they said.
Good takeaway. Yeah.
Short-term memory is great.
Thinking that.
No. Like that was what I was thinking about. Right?
Work experience is all about pushing yourself. One other.
Yeah.
Come on.
No,
Hannah.
but like, I'm happy if you take that away. Great. Yeah. Go write down some goals.
What
and
about
get
you,
back to it.
97? You're not.
No, probably the whole building a global community and connecting all these central hubs.
Yeah.
I felt like that really resonates with what we're doing, and we're super inspired by that. So I was really, stoked with that. That was awesome.
Right, there we go. That's a daily talk show. Definitely check out Ladyland, Apple
Caitlin,
Podcasts,
your
Spotify.
phone's buzzing too. I think it's Beyonce.
No, I can't tell.
Yeah, I was
the phone-
expecting
was
a
the
phone call from her.
actually ringing, or was that all banter?
Okay,
Okay, so what? How do you know whose bag's whose?
Yeah, I was
well, Caitlin put hers there, and she said it had the mints, so I eyed it off.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been going rummaging through the bags. Say, we were all a bit distracted over
His
here.
breath is fresh though.
Minty fresh.
It's the Daily Talk Show. If you've enjoyed the show, feel free to share it on Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, guys.
See you guys.
Woo.